Major League Baseball studies showed that the most exciting things to happen, there are two things that are exciting to happen in a baseball game that has every fan like loves
Pumped.
to see pumped. A double,
Yep.
because it's a guy hitting the ball and then trying to stretch a single into a double,
Hmm.
and stolen bases. It's not home runs. It's not
Really?
strikeouts.
Hey, I'm Jessica McCoy here at Raising Midland, a podcast for parents in the Permian. I'm here with my friend Ray Fieldhouse, the assistant general manager of the RockHounds. Really excited to talk about a little bit about baseball and convince Midland that we are better than the Savannah Bananas, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. I feel like maybe we can like combat the Savannah Bananas with like maybe some like old school geology like helmets similar to what your the dog or the rockhound wears,
Oh, that'd be
right?
interesting.
With the, hammer to hit some geodes, right? All right, well, cool. I'm so excited to have you here. And I don't really know a lot about AAA baseball, so we're gonna get into it.
Okay.
Cool. So can you tell me a little bit of like your story? How long have you lived here? How did you get here if you're not from here?
Well, I'm not from Midland, but I have now lived in Midland m- more than half my life.
Nice. Well, you're only 50, so come on, that's not that long. That's cool. So did you raise your family here?
I did.
Cool.
My wife and I met at the ballpark, coincidentally enough.
What?
Yep.
That's so cool. Were y'all really big baseball fans, huh?
I've always been a baseball fan. My wife has too. She started coming to the ballpark before I moved to Midland, and has been a baseball fan for a long time. I say, my kids, we have one child together, and then I like to call them my bonus kids. I've got 5 other bonus kids that came along with her.
That is so cool.
And they're they're like my own.
They're automatically all baseball fans and huge Rockhounds fans, yeah?
Pretty much, they're all. And now they're all sports fans. I would say our oldest is the biggest sports fan.
Awesome.
But they're all baseball fans. I have one of our sons is a big hockey fan, but he still loves baseball. Every single one of my kids has worked at the ballpark.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's kind of like Chick-fil-A. You know what I mean? You got to see how the sausage is made in
Yep.
order to appreciate it.
Yep. And
That's
then
cool.
our youngest is basically born and raised at the ballpark. I have a
Very
picture in my office. He was 21 days old at the ballpark.
Wow, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So tell me, what's your role at the Rockhounds? Like, what does the assistant general manager do?
Well, as it's in the title, I assist the GM quite a bit. I have a leadership role with our staff. We have, our staff is a lot of young professionals, and some of them have only been in the game, as we call it, for a year or two. Others, 5 to 10 years. As the assistant general manager, I oversee directly the grounds department, which is all the field, our stadium operations department, the ballpark security. And now I used to be the one responsible for the merchandise, the swag. But we have a full-time retail merchandise
That's
manager
cool.
now. So I oversee her, and I give her, I poke my head in her office, which is the store, daily to see how things are going. I'm not an overbearing guy.
I can tell you're very relaxed.
Yeah,
You're very chill.
I want her to take ownership, just like anybody else leading their department. And I just try to, hey, I'm here. And if I see something, I might make a mention of it or give you some suggestions. But she's really taken to it. She was an intern for us
Oh, wow.
last summer, and we hired her full time. So
That's really neat.
yeah.
I will say, I'll plug what my husband's opinion is about the Rockhounds gear. He loves the stuff from the 80s and the 90s back when he was growing up.
Yeah.
And so he actually found a Rockhounds hat on eBay. And like, I'll have to show you a picture of it.
I can imagine.
And
I can picture it right now.
Yes, and like he's like they have to bring back, I think there was like a dollar bill or something on one of y'all's old jerseys. And all of
I
his
know it. Yeah.
Yeah, all of his group of friends are like, bring back the vintage jerseys. So maybe you can plug that. That's so neat. I've been to a couple Rockhounds games, and they're just such a fun way to get involved. Being from Austin, we had the San Antonio, well, it was the San Antonio Express
Round
that would come in. Round Rock Express. There we go. San Antonio Express is the newspaper.
Yes.
The Round
Oh,
Rock
okay.
Express. The Round Rock Express. That's what I said initially. The Round Rock Express is the AAA baseball team. And it was so much fun to go to just on like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night when, and eat baseball food and hang out. It's just the best. So, how did you get involved initially?
Um, well, out of college, I ended up in the greater Los Angeles area. And I didn't mean to be in the teaching field, but I was, and I started going to grad school. And I was almost done with grad school and was driving home from Cal State LA, which is on the east side of downtown LA, to the west side of LA, and happened to be driving through downtown listening to KLOS radio. If anybody's familiar with Mark and Brian, they were like probably the first big morning show
Cool.
guys. I mean, they got their start back in the early 80s.
Wow.
And I was listening to KLOS, this rock station. There's an advertisement for the baseball winter meetings, and there's a job fair. And I'm like, I like baseball. I didn't mean to be a teacher. Go to this job fair, and a team out of Everett, Washington, in the Northwest League took a chance on a nearly 30-year-old intern.
That's
So I
awesome.
got my start, and the next fall met Monty Hopple, who's everybody in town knows Monty Hopple.
Hmm.
Was the GM here for 30 some odd years, and
Wow.
now he's in the role as a president, but he's mostly a consultant for us.
That's
And met
amazing.
him at some meetings in El Paso, and
Wow.
the rest, as you say, is history.
That's so
Ended
cool.
up in Midland, and then never back then in the minor leagues. It's real common until you get to a high level with a team. People just kind of, you'd be somewhere 1, 2, 3 years and move on to the next team, and for something a little bit better. And just Midland just grew on me, and
That's cool.
Monty was a great boss to work for, and
That's
we had great
amazing.
ownership, and I ended up here, and like I said, met my wife here.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so interesting what the Rockhounds has been for our community. I remember going to Far West just last year. This older gentleman, he wrote a book about the Rockhounds and about the history. And I'll send you an email with what that
Yeah, you
is.
have to.
And his dad had played um like minor league baseball and then played for the Angels and then somehow ended up back in Midland to like be a trainer for a couple years. And he collected all of this information that his dad had collected during his time at the Rockhounds. And I just randomly met him at Bar West, and we sat down for like a whole hour and just chatted about the Midland Rockhounds. And when I finally created this podcast, I was like, I have to talk to them and like
Yeah.
get to know more about it. That's so cool. So what is the process of like, I mean, how do you get team buy-in and like community buy-in for any sports team in West Texas?
Well, first and foremost, you have to become part of the community. And for I mean, it was ingrained in me when I first came here,
Hmm.
and our ownership group, when they bought the team back in the fall of '89, that was the first thing they did. Is they developed with Monty, they started our West Texas Sports Banquet and Memorabilia Auction.
Oh,
And that one event, we've been raising money for Casa de Amigos for when they did it in February of 1990.
they're going to
So
be on this season.
it's now 2025. This year we've done it.
Wow.
What is that? 35 years?
Yeah.
35 years we've done that one event.
Wow.
There's all kinds of community partners that we have that we're involved with. You had West Texas Food Bank on earlier
Mhm.
today. We do stuff with them through HEB. Where we participate in HEB's Feast of Sharing every year. We've been involved with Gifts of Hope.
Oh.
Um, and just doing those things, and our community outreach program, our community relations. We try to get our mascot anywhere and everywhere. It's funny that, I mean, he literally says no words, but Rocky is king. you take Rocky anywhere, and every little kid is like Rocky, and they're
I think it's the ears.
it's it may be the years. I remember we were in. I'm not going to say which high school because I don't want to start that. We were in a high school homecoming parade with our
Nice.
mascots, and all I remember about it is hearing all the screams for Rocky. I mean, they should be screaming for the homecoming king and queen, and they're going nuts for Rocky.
Yeah.
And he's, I don't want to say
Nobody cares
just,
about those teenagers. Let's do the
yeah,
giant cartoon dog.
and growing and being family friendly. I mean, it's the ballpark, and if you've been able to bring your kids, and
Mhm.
we have fun things for them, but there's things to attract the kids at the ballpark, but I think I enjoy it more when I see a family engaged in the game,
That's so fun.
you know.
Are y'all gonna have those? I know like last year you guys had some it was kind of like Top Golf.
Ballpark links.
Yes, that was
Yes.
so
Yes,
fun.
we are. We'll be doing that again. He plug here.
Tell
Golf headquarters is sponsoring it again.
Okay, I love that. So tell me a little bit about that for people who may not know. Basically, the Rockhounds hosted a mini like Top Golf
Yeah.
situation.
Well, it's been the first time the baseball winter meetings were in San Diego, and back in the day, the baseball winter meetings, there was always a gala at a big league park wherever the meetings were held. And we were at Petco, and they had just wrapped up. I didn't even know this at the time because I mean they're not going to come to, Midland doesn't have a big league stadium, but Callaway
Hmm.
does a thing throughout big league football stadiums and baseball stadiums where they basically create a golf course inside
It's kind of like
a
what Tiger
baseball
Woods
stadium.
is doing, right? With
Yeah.
his new oh my gosh, what is his new indoor
Oh, it's
golf thing? Did you watch that?
yeah, and it's not NIL.
No, but it's
NIG?
yes,
No,
I think so.
yeah.
But then
I've watched it a couple
it
times.
was odd. Like my
Yeah,
husband and I were in Houston for
yeah,
my work. It was like 2 weeks ago, and we were watching how they like do it and how it looks like a baseball stadium.
yeah. It's an indoor arena, and I think it seats well over 1,000 people. It's
Yeah,
pretty big, and it's the world's largest like virtual golf
wild.
thing.
Hey, listen, stadiums are expensive to build.
Yes,
We should utilize them in all the different spaces. That's what I
yes,
learned.
yeah,
That's my grad school in a nutshell.
yeah.
What I learned at
And
Texas.
you have to. I mean, we do it.
Hmm.
We don't have the luxury of selling multi-million dollar sponsorships in the minor leagues, and
Yeah.
you have to utilize everything. But Callaway had just wrapped this up at Petco, and they still had some of their platforms. They basically built tee
Wow.
boxes throughout the stadium, and then on the playing surface had holes, and I don't know how much they charged, but you would go in and you'd hit to your targets on the field.
That's so cool.
And then we're not the first. There are some other minor league teams have done this, but myself and our former stadium ops director started the first one coming right out of COVID. I think it was 2021. No, it was 2022.
Cool.
And I mean, I have to give him more credit than myself. I mainly got involved because I sold the sponsorship to it, and being a sales guy, I was like, I got to make sure the clients are happy. So I just got involved, and then
Nice.
he moved on, and it's now my
Now you're like, okay,
now we got to keep doing this.
I enrolled
And
this.
we love partnering with golf headquarters on it. We do it in the spring and the fall every year, and it's
Wow.
fun and it's grown. Uh,
That's so
People have a
cool.
good time. You can come out in the ballpark. It's generally good weather. Sometimes it can be windy, but in the spring and the fall, you're not going to get 100-degree temps. And
So for all those people complaining about lack of golf courses, they should really look forward to this.
we
That'd
still
be
need
fun.
golf courses.
I know, I know. I'm trying to find positivity in it.
Yeah.
With the rise of AAA baseball teams like the Savannah Bananas, right?
Uh-huh.
How have major and minor leagues changed in the last 10 years, would you say?
Um,
Because really, I mean, I'm just saying, like in grad school, I had to do a whole paper on why the Savannah Bananas have impacted minor league baseball because their marketing strategy is that they literally don't have one. They just have kind of like an unhinged, which I think he's amazing. I don't mean it insulting, but like an unhinged GM.
Yep.
And
Jesse's a little bit unhinged.
yeah, and he's just like, I love it though. He
Yeah.
brings so much energy, and I feel like he is just so passionate about his team that they automatically just have fun. And I remember writing in the paper that his biggest thing for his team is to have fun when they're
Yeah,
playing.
it is. And they put on a great show.
Mhm.
There, although the biggest difference between us and them, or for my regular minor league baseball and them in general, is kind of the same comparison to, say, what the Harlem Globetrotters are to the NBA.
Okay, cool.
So
I don't think I put 2 and 2 together for that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
they and don't get me wrong, that he is a marketing genius.
Yeah.
They put on an amazing show, and it's fun and entertaining.
Mhm.
But when it comes down to it, it still isn't necessarily real
Yeah.
baseball. But what they do,
It's like wrestling's not really wrestling.
yeah, I guess so.
I'm
Yeah,
just waiting for the trolls on the
yeah,
internet be like, "What are you
um,
talking about?
yeah. No,
Stan Getz, Steve
I can't.
Johnson's a real athlete."
Yeah, and they are. I mean, he has real baseball players,
Oh, I actually didn't know that though.
he'll sign former major leaguers to
Oh,
like 1 day
wow.
contracts, and they are
So
very,
actually do deals because I thought
yeah,
their whole thing was, signing up the guy next door and like
yeah.
giving him a chance, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, but the whole thing, it's very scripted.
oh wow.
But it's entertaining. It's not,
Do you think
yeah,
that people?
I can't say anything negative about them,
Yeah.
but it is different
Hmm.
than
It's like
than
comparing
real
apples and
profession.
oranges.
Yes.
But how do you think that the Savannah Bananas have maybe increased the expectation of the patron that's attending games? Do you think that that's changed like the entertainment value that
It
people are
it
looking for?
definitely makes us up our game on the entertainment side
Mhm.
when it comes to getting more creative and trying to do more entertaining things that's going to engage the crowd and in between games.
Mhm.
If you go to a major league baseball game, you're basically going there to watch the game.
Yeah.
You come to a minor league baseball game, yeah, a lot of our fans are fans of the team and they love baseball, but they also want to be entertained in between innings. And the Bananas have probably not forced, but they definitely are. I can see an influence in what teams are doing in between innings and adding to their entertainment during the game.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it almost puts a lot of pressure on sports becoming more inherently professional sports are supposed to have some sort of entertainment value. But then you look at like the Cowboys, right? And you look at the Savannah Bananas and you're really setting up a lot of other teams to be spending the type of money that a lot of those, Savannah has done, or
Yeah.
even the Cowboys. And generally speaking, that's not economical for any athletic team to be able to be pushing like all this entertainment value. And really, people just want, the purpose of that team is to actually play the sport.
Right.
How do you think players have really changed in the last 10 years of baseball, do you think? And just over the course of your career, like are players really looking for long-term baseball contracts or, like you were saying back earlier in your career, people were moving on every 2 to 3 years. Is that still the same, would you say, for baseball players nowadays?
Um, I don't think they're looking to move on, in terms of moving to a different organization as much as the minor league players. I mean, they're and s- sometimes our fans can get upset when a player gets called up, but when it comes down to it, it's like he's doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
His goal isn't to be a double-A baseball player for his career.
Yeah.
His goal is to
Move up.
move up to the next level and get to the big leagues.
Mhm.
And then I think that when they get to the big leagues and there's a whole lot more money involved, and
Mhm.
when players hit free agency, there's, you know, that's big dollars that most people in the world, in in our world, don't see that kind of money
Yeah,
in terms of for salaries.
I know. I get
So
that.
I mean, there's definitely that's what their goal is, and then they still got to love the game. I mean, you got to love what you're doing because you're not going to succeed
If you don't like it.
if you don't like it at all.
And baseball is so grueling because I mean, they literally only got like 2 months off, like, right? Before they go into like spring training or like their next round of training. And
Yeah, for a baseball player, I mean, they could play the whole season, and then they could, especially the younger prospects, they could end up playing in the fall league, and then on some of them still play in various winter leagues, in Mexico and the Dominican Republic, and the next thing you know, it's like they're starting all over again in February in spring training.
jeez, that's a lot. Where do you guys do your spring training?
Well, the Rockhounds were affiliated with the Oakland A's.
Hmm.
So the Oakland A's spring training is in Arizona. With I think there are 16 teams in Arizona and 14 teams in Florida.
Oh, wow.
So they all have their own minor league camps, and then the pitchers and catchers just reported late last week,
Wow.
and I think they start right around March 1st. They start spring training games. And minor league camp opens up the first week of March, and they got various minor league games going on every day. And
Jeez, how many games does your team have to play every year? Because I know
um,
baseball in general has so many games, like 100 plus, right?
yeah, we in the Texas League, or all of Double A baseball, which there are three Double A leagues. We have 138 game season.
Gosh, that's wild. So does that mean you almost have like 2 to 3 games a week, or
Uh,
is it less than
no,
that?
no, 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 it's more than that.
More than that? Oh, I'm
Well,
just
we
like
play
maybe I'm
six.
thinking
We
hockey,
play
like
6 games a week.
6 games a week.
Every series, with a couple minor exceptions, is 6 games, Tuesday through Sunday.
Oh my God. I'm
And
just thinking
then
like that's a
yeah,
lot on your body.
yeah. Back when I first was getting into this, they would only have maybe 5, 6 days off during a baseball season.
Total?
But total,
Oh my
total.
gosh.
And now it's quite different, especially with the advent of the Minor League Players Association. Every Monday's an off day, and then they also get the same 4 days off that coincides with the Major League Baseball All-Star break.
Oh wow. So then that way, like if they want to move somebody up, like how does
Yeah.
that work with baseball? Are you allowed to move up
Oh,
to
it's
major league with
constant.
really? Okay, please forgive me.
You're all
I
right.
grew up as an Astros fan,
Yeah.
and then my husband's a Rangers fan.
Okay.
So like I know more major league than I know minor league, and like I know that it goes like 1A, then
Yeah.
2A, then 3A, right?
Yep.
Y'all are double A.
Yep.
And so I've never known the trading thing and how that
Okay.
works. So can you kind of explain to me?
Sure. Well, every major league club has a triple A, double A, and two single A teams.
Hmm.
There's a low A and a high A, but they're both single
Wow.
A.
That's a lot
Uh,
of guys.
yeah, it's a lot of guys. So if you think about it, say you're an Astros fan, Jose Altuve
Hmm.
twists an ankle Tuesday night.
Hmm.
He's not going to be on the DL for very long, but he's going to miss a couple games. They immediately have to fill that spot.
Oh boy.
So there's going to be a guy coming from AAA. Now there's a spot in AAA open. There's got to be a guy from AA. So
Wow.
it's a chain reaction with likewise, say they had a guy in the big leagues who wasn't doing very well and they decided they need to go back to
It's
AAA.
like recycling.
It's going to go back. It's going to go the opposite way.
That's I don't know. I know this seems probably obvious to a lot of people, but that's like a genius like business model.
Yeah.
Because like you always have fresh bodies.
Yeah. And now and this was brought on by COVID, they have what they call a taxi squad, and I think it's 10 guys that basically at any moment they don't have he could be on a tarmac with a AAA team, and the
Get a
GM from
call.
the A's gets a call, said, "Hey, get so and so off that plane. He's going to meet the team in Washington to play in the game against Nationals tonight."
So question, does the A's do they own all of their feeder teams?
No, the A's do not.
Okay, so how's
They
that
don't own
work?
any of their feeder teams. Some,
'Cause
like
that's
the
such a relationship
Astros.
issue. Cause like, if you
Yeah,
don't like one guy,
yeah,
like one owner,
yeah.
and he's like, "I'm not giving up that guy," but it would behoove him financially, right?
Well, when you say that, all the players are, I don't like to use the word own because
Sorry, I know. What I
that
mean, like,
sounds like slavery,
yeah.
but they're under contract. All
Okay.
the players in the A's system and would play for all four of the minor league teams that are affiliated with the A's. They're all players
Employed.
that are contracted through the A's. So we,
Wow.
as the RockHounds, and on this business side that we were talking about earlier, we don't actually control what's going on with the players and the coaches. They're all employed by the A's.
A As a coach myself, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, you have to, like, how do you create synergy within your team? Like
It's a tough job.
that's gotta be so hard. I mean, I'm sure,
No,
obviously, that's
and
their job, but, like,
the good ones are great at it. And the
wow.
bad ones, it's noticeable. I've seen teams that have all the talent in the world, but there's no cohesiveness, and they don't gel, and they aren't
'Cause you
successful on
really
the
have to be a
field.
flexible coach if
Yeah.
you're getting new guys in.
And the most movement happens at our level too.
Really? Yeah, because everyone's like, "Do, do, 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 do," you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
We had 30 something roster changes last year.
30 something roster changes? Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's difficult because then you have to, like, the guys that so, what you're really saying is you might go to spring training with a guy, but he might not be there in, like, 6 weeks.
No, exactly.
So what's the point of spring training?
Just well, I mean, it's
Gets people
kind of
going?
like the same thing with football. It's like, hey, we're getting back in the mode. We're playing baseball again,
Wow.
and because most guys have. There's been at least 2 or 3 months that they haven't played baseball.
Gets
They've
them going.
probably been working out. They've probably been throwing. Guys do a lot on their own in the off season because it's
You have
only
to.
benefiting them. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
'Cause that's just gotta be so difficult, and then I know that, just through social media, some of these, like, baseball moms will kinda talk, or baseball wives will talk about, how that works for families, because I know for the
I couldn't
NFL.
imagine.
Yeah, like, I have a couple of friends in the NFL, and, like, they don't live usually where they play football.
Mm,
Like, some of them will go
most don't.
like, live by family because they already know that their husband is gonna be traveling. So how do families in baseball, like, root themselves? Do they travel? Because I mean, if you got a 100
We
plus games,
Yeah,
you're not gonna follow. I mean, they
yeah.
might be able to, but you're not gonna follow your guy around if he's, like, constantly being traded all the time. I would hope not.
No, and for the most part, and this is just on observation because I obviously haven't been a player and I haven't, you know, had direct I mean, I get to know them and I meet them, not the wives as much, but I get to know a lot of the players. And we may have, 8 to 10 wives slash girlfriends, not at the same time, but,
Yeah.
wives or girlfriends. Um, that are in town and with their husbands during the season, but for the most part, I mean, they're still. I mean, minor league ball players, even the ones that were drafted high and signed big signing bonuses, it's not they don't necessarily have a ton of money, so it's
Yeah.
typically their wives are probably working real, I say real, but
Yeah.
full time jobs back
100%.
home wherever their off season is.
Yeah.
And they'll come visit them from time to time, but
It's difficult.
it's tough.
Like, my friend, one of my friends is married to an ex-football player, but back when he was playing in the NFL, she would NFL's different because they're not moving as much.
Yeah,
But
there's not.
yeah, they would move to, like, a temporary home in the area where he would, like, practice and do, games, but then they had, like, a home base. And she was consistently having to, like, take kids back and forth, and I don't know how she did it. And honestly, it must have been really difficult to hold down her job too. But I mean, it's just crazy. I feel like people get this romanticized version of what professional sports is, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so sexy and great." There's got to be so much glamour, but then. You do the sport for your whole life to get to that point, right? So you're already,
Right,
like, kind of in the thick of it, but then to, like, get your family on board, you got to sell that dream.
right.
Like, and that's got to be really difficult. And it's financially taxing, it's physically taxing. How are you guys helping keep your guys healthy, throughout the season? Do you guys have support systems for for your players? Do you have trainers, obviously?
Yes. Well, we don't. Again, they're all employed by the A's. We now have at the AA level, there's two athletic trainers
Uh-huh.
for the team. They also have a strength coach. They also have, they're the coaching staff is a manager and three other coaches.
Wow.
And then throughout the season, we'll have most people just refer to them as roving instructors that come in and out throughout the season.
That's cool.
That all have typically they have different specializations, whether they're hitting or fielding or pitching. Um, so they get quite a bit of support, and then they also have support for the mental aspects of it too.
Yeah.
That the A's employ, they have people for that.
Sports psychologists are like the best
Yeah,
if you're I feel like for an athlete, so then that way like you can curb any sort of like really severe disappointment you might have from your results in a previous game. You can
yeah,
go to your sports psychologist and like they can talk to you a little bit about how to see perspective in that.
sure.
That's helpful. That's really, really cool. What does your typical day look like as an assistant GM? Like, do you have like
Off
a
season or games or in
give me
season?
both? Go ahead, hit me up. Let's see, Ray. Go on.
It's funny. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've gotten either a phone call or run into somebody and it's November and they're like, "So what do you do?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I doing?"
I have a
Well, it's
job.
the season's not going on. What do you do now? And then my stock answer usually is, "Well, I'm a lot busier now. I'm just there less."
That's
um,
a perfect answer.
I mean, the amount what we put in to plan for the next season and especially our sales staff to sell it's like we can't just open the doors and hope people show up.
Yeah.
And then to keep the ownership happy, we've got to be selling sponsorships and selling tickets. So my off season is really a lot busier than in season. It's like, okay, let's just make sure it happens.
Yeah.
um
Keep
we've
the
s-
oil on
we've
the
s-
machine.
We've sold all the billboards. We continue to sell tickets, but the bulk of the tickets, ticket packages and big groups have been sold before the season starts.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, okay, now we just have to make sure we don't screw this thing up too bad.
Yeah, I get that. Keep it going.
And then put it on. We're just there later. Although the pitch clock, I love it.
Really?
Oh, well, there I can tell you, just a regular 9 inning games going 3.5, 4 hours, and you're getting home after 11 o'clock and turn around and have to be back there the next day. So with the pitch clock, we're averaging 2.5, 3 hour games, and I'm getting home at before 10 o'clock at night. It's kind of
Hey, you're
nice.
like, all right, that's not so bad. 2 hour difference. You got
Yes,
to take it where you can.
yeah.
That is so cool.
So, but off season, it's coming in. Okay, I'm kind of old school. I have legal pads all over my desk. It's like, all right, who do I need to get in touch with today? Okay, what in-house meetings
Hmm.
do I have in terms of stadium operations? We work real hand in hand with the city of Midland, who we're a permanent tenant at the ballpark, but the city of Midland owns the whole complex. So
Hmm.
we work hand in hand with the city of Midland. Um, and then during the season, it's come in the next morning after a game. If there are any, I don't know what I'm going to do this year because I don't have any post game reports to write because we have a full time person doing
Ooh,
souvenirs.
fancy.
Um, but it's just kind of checking our schedule, and then crossing T's, dotting I's for that day's event. And if we've got special things going on, obviously we've planned for them ahead of time. Then it's like, okay, this has to happen to be done by this time, and this has to be done by this time, and getting ready. And I'm always I check in with our coaching staff. Pretty much early afternoon because
Mhm.
they baseball players and they don't get up early.
Because there's more of an afternoon thing.
Yeah, check in with them. I usually with the visiting team, I'll check in with their manager the first day or two that they're in town. I don't check in with them on a daily basis.
Yeah, how does that work? Like, is it your responsibility to like play host
Yeah, pretty much.
and be like, y'all got water?
Yeah,
Got what else
yeah,
does baseball players need? The big chew gum, maybe,
yeah,
and David's sunflower seeds. Like,
yeah.
is that how it works? Just to make sure that like they're good and do
Pretty
you have to
much.
manage their hotels or anything like that?
We arrange for it, but they're responsible for getting their rooming list and number of rooms needed to our hotel, and we'll just like we are when we're on the
Uh huh.
road. But all the hotel agreements are set up. We arrange for that. We have a contract with a local hotel right by the ballpark.
That's
And so
nice.
they handle their pretty much. We only get involved with the hotel during if there's an issue.
That's good.
So and we hire the clubhouse manager for the visiting side, so that he takes care of everything they have to have. Although, I mean, we pay for everything.
Yeah.
The clubhouse manager just has to make sure it's there. But I don't try to get in their business. There are some visiting managers that I've grown to be friends with over the years and still keep in contact with. But I tell them up front and said, "Hey, I'm not the GM, assistant GM that's going to want to come in here and shoot the breeze every day,
Yeah.
and I mean, you guys got more important things to do than talk to me. I'll pop my head in every once in a while. And that's about it. If there's an issue, Blake knows where to find
Wow.
me. Well, I say Blake, he was the clubhouse manager last year. The club, he knows where to find me. I'm a guy. It's like, hey, if there's a problem, I want to get it fixed. Don't stew on it till the last day
Yeah.
you were here. And some coaches are like, Ray, come see me every day. Others you can tell right away they don't want to be bothered with
Yeah.
me. But I mean, I hear all the stories from our team when they're on the road, and they know the people that guy won't leave us alone,
Yeah. This
and
there's
that's the
something
last
worse.
that's the last thing I want to be, even with our own coaches.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm going to check on you, but I'm not going to come pester you.
Yeah, we had that at like the university level for swimming. So like anytime you travel, sometimes you'd have like a representation from like that university to make sure that like you
Yeah,
got into the locker room and all that good stuff. Or like, do you have concessions and stuff like that to make sure that because generally speaking, it just promotes goodwill amongst the league or like
yeah,
league for y'all. But within college athletics, and you never want to be that college that or like the team that doesn't host well because like ultimately that's an
right,
economic issue for y'all because you want them to come back.
right,
So that's great. How do you think, just like kind of pivoting here about player attitude? I don't know how involved you are with any of the players on your team, but a big conversation in college athletics. I know your son in law is a former Texas Tech football player.
yeah,
How do you think NIL has changed baseball in general? Because baseball is one of those sports I would assume is similar to basketball where like you can go pro and, whenever.
yeah.
And so NIL has really provided a lot of equity for players. Is there any sort of attitude changes that you've seen, positive or negative, within baseball?
Not at the professional level. I don't think it has affected it that much. And I think with baseball, it's because the once you're out of college,
Hmm.
um, these guys are still hungry to get to that level. And it's unfortunate, but there's not huge NIL dollars for most
In
any.
baseball?
Well, for any sport compared to football.
I know. I know.
And I have nothing against football. I'm a football fan. I'm
Yeah.
not trying. I don't want to knock football, but economically, I get it.
Uh-huh.
That's where most of the dollars are
Yeah.
coming into that school. But there are some pretty big in. There's some big names that come out of college baseball, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a handful compared um, to other sports. And the players still see that you know minimum salary once you sign once you get and they factor it down to the day.
Oh, really?
Like if you spend a day with the big league club because they're playing a doubleheader and they needed an extra pitcher, you're getting big league salary for a day,
Hey, that's
and
kind of nice.
and it's close to $700,000 and it's divided by the number of games. So it's
Still, that's a chunk of change
yeah,
for one game, or maybe
yeah,
like you get one
and
of
they
the
haven't
players.
factored down to daily what the big league salary is because I mean you're and um so it's I don't think it's affected it that much,
Yeah,
and because and plus that NIL money, it ends as soon as you're gone from the
yeah.
school. And it's yeah, there are some people making a lot of money, but the ones that are even in college, yeah, it's good money, but when it stops, you can't just go, I don't have to work anymore.
I know this is a debate that I've been having with some of my friends in college sports. I'm personally a big proponent for NIL because I feel like it does provide equity, similar to kind of what we were talking about. Like when people say a team owns a player, I
Yeah,
find that very problematic, right? And
sure.
I think universities in general use that language a lot, like especially when you're going into your team meetings. The sometimes your university, not SMU, but I've had some friends in Big 12 schools that have said, our university has specifically said, we own your time when you're here because you're getting an education and you owe this university X, Y, and Z when you sign that contract every year. And not a lot of people realize that you have to sign your contract every single year you're a college athlete.
Right.
It's not a 4-year agreement. So if you're not performing your job correctly, much like in the real world, you're going to be put on a PIP similar to what you would see in an office, a performance improvement plan. It is business. And I
It
don't,
is.
and I think sometimes people will remote, like, especially if you don't have anyone in your family that's done college athletics to that level, they will look at it and say, oh, it's so cool that you got to go to the University of Texas or you got to go play at Baylor, right? And, they want this like romanticized viewpoint of college athletics of like you're participating in the legacy of that school. You cannot tell me that all the college athletes that I know look into it. They're like, listen, this is a business deal. I want to do my best so I can make it to X, Y, and Z.
Right.
I know that, a lot of people don't realize that the NCAA also provides education for players too on, how to spend your money, how to like, especially in football,
Right.
because there's a higher
Oh yeah.
likelihood of football players getting recruited to the NFL. So they make them go through financial literacy classes. The NFL requires that too, from players. So, I think sometimes people think the NIL creates these like hot-headed, entitled players when they literally don't understand what is going behind the scenes. So I was just curious because I feel like that's something that's really interesting to approach in all aspects of professional athletics because NIL was beneficial for a time. Unfortunately, it's going away with the NCAA, with what they're considering moving forward for next seasons. I mean, so it's
I didn't
interesting.
know that.
Yeah, like it's been on the chopping block
Okay.
for it's. I think they're going to eliminate it in 27, but it's because there's this perception. Well, amongst other things, it's not official yet, but there's this perception that college players are entitled and college players should just be okay with getting a free education. No, no, no. Let's just spend our money and our
Uh,
bodies and like ruin. I mean, for baseball, Tommy John surgery, you have 13-year-olds that are getting Tommy John
yeah.
surgery.
I
You're
the
sacrificing
whole
so much more.
I mean, we could have done the NIL this whole podcast. And
What are your thoughts? I'm
in a
curious.
nutshell, I think it's both good and bad.
Tell me.
I think for years these universities, and I don't want to be publicly saying anything about
Uh
any
huh.
particular universities, but you can't tell me these universities
SMU.
haven't been making
Hey,
millions of dollars off the blood, sweat, and tears of these athletes.
100%.
Yes, they're getting a college education, but that's minuscule to the money that some of these programs make. Um, they already were doing some sort of NIL. It wasn't officially called that, but I know when my son-in-law played,
Mm-hmm.
he was getting a month. And aside from his tuition and room and board being covered, he
Mhm.
was getting a monthly stipend. Was it that much? It wasn't that much
You
money.
do an Olympic sport, something a lot of people don't
Yeah.
know is if you do an Olympic sport like swimming, I have teammates. So SMU has recruited international swimmers for quite some time. It's what we're
Mhm.
known for. Usually we'll only have about 5 or 6 girls from the US at any given time. The entire roster is generally speaking European or from other countries
Sure.
like South America, South Africa, or Australia.
Sounds like the golf programs.
Exactly. And the reason why college coaches do that is because they can get paid by the like the FINA for swimming. It's FINA, which is the International Swimming Organization that governs international swimming. They can also get paid by the Olympic Committee of that country. They can also get paid by individual like organizations depending on the country who has the money. So, and then if they like the individual country can pay them out of like a separate Olympic fund. So you can get paid by the Olympic fund. You can also get paid by that country's Olympic fund. Then you can also coach that swimmer in the Olympics by if that country has established a relationship with you. So it behooves college coaches at the NCAA level to coach international swimmers or golfers or tennis. Tennis is another big one because you can get paid with 4 other streams of revenue outside of what you're getting paid by the university. So that's why
I
I'm a
did not
huge
know all this.
yeah. And I don't know if it's public knowledge, but that is very much public knowledge in swimming and tennis
Huh.
and in golf because that's part of the reason why I'm such a proponent for NIL because you're going to tell me that that coach is getting paid. Let's pretend I'm a Australian swimmer. You're going to sit here and tell me that I can't collect on any of that? And it's also NCAA compliant, at least it was back when I was going to school. It still is, from what my understanding, that if you're on an Olympic team and you're playing in college sports, you can get paid by your university, sorry, your country to represent your country in the Olympics. So sometimes our swimmers, our golfers, our tennis players throughout the NCAA, I'm not just talking about my former school, they were getting paid by their country to go to school and train in the United States. And what's
As long
frank
as they kept making the Olympic team.
and not every country like is that competitive
Yeah.
compared to what the United States is. So for like swimming, generally speaking, for the last 20, 30 years, USA and Australia have been highly competitive against each other.
Oh yeah.
So then you bring in another country, let's just say some random country in South America or something. They may not have a very like solid Olympic team in general, but they can send that, swimmer to a university, have them have a full ride scholarship. It behooves that country to have that swimmer in the Olympics, even though they may not be the best. And then that swimmer can get paid by the Olympic Committee, their country, and they get stipends for room and board. So there were a lot of my friends in NCAA swimming and tennis specifically that I knew that were getting paid on top
Yeah.
of their college education, yet the American swimmers, American athletes, American tennis players
Weren't
were not
necessarily.
able to do that because it's not in compliance. So,
That's just
and you have more equal
something's wrong.
you have equal opportunity, but you have more
Yeah.
of an opportunity if you're from another country
Yeah.
to participate in college sports than you would as an American swimmer. Now, if you're an American swimmer and you join the Olympics, then I think that they could also benefit from that. But there's also some stipulations with that as well because the NCAA would get involved. I can't speak to what American swimmers would be able to receive.
So the
It's
same.
challenging your perspective now. I know,
No, the same.
NIL seems like pretty equitable
There,
now.
well, I was never
I know,
against
I'm
it.
just giving
I
you a hard
was
time.
just like, basically, I thought it was starting to get out of hand, but that,
Yeah.
but their NCAA athletes are due something.
Yes.
Whether it's multi-million dollar NIL deals, I
Some
don't
of these
know.
have been wild, okay?
Yeah,
Like,
some of them have
some of
been
them,
wild.
the gymnast from LSU getting paid, like, I think she was getting paid, I think she got paid 1.5 million for some sort
Yeah,
of ad with I think it was a local LSU
yeah,
company, owned company. Or like, you look at football players that are going on, advertising car dealerships. Now, I love SMU, but the whole reason we are just getting thrown underneath the bus. You look at Penn State, right? Penn State got blackballed for football for 4 years because of Sandusky, right? We got our entire athletic department at SMU was we've been struggling for 30 plus years. And it wasn't until this year when we had alumni, thank God, donate so much money for us to get to the ACC. We were made an example of because we were doing exactly what the NIL is.
Yeah.
And then you get a slap on the wrist to be in Penn State, for doing something that's actually illegal. That's something that is to be considered. So SMU is like this, science experiment for how the NIL can impact players. I'm not saying that, we all know that Bama, I'll just say it, Bama and Texas and, all these other teams, it makes sense for them to do that. I'm big on NCAA compliance. I know my former compliance officer is probably going to watch this, be like, Jessica, come on, I've taught you better. But there's has to be some level of equity because if you're especially baseball, one of the things I learned in grad school is that Tommy John surgery, which for people who don't know is a tendon lengthening surgery that will extend the throwing length of or speed of a baseball player's arms so that they can throw better, right? If they're a pitcher. The surgery used to be only offered to professional players, and now it's getting younger and younger and younger. And the study we were reading is it ethical to perform a surgery that's going to strengthen a child's arm at the age of 8 years old so that they can
It's a big
potentially
question.
play Major League Baseball? There's bigger implications for sports than I think people understand. And if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to sacrifice your body and need surgery at 8 years old for the 1% chance that you're going to play Major League Baseball, there has to be some
Less than
level of
1%.
equity. Less than 1%. Hey, I'm just being
I
generous.
know. Yeah, it's crazy. But I think you're right that it's something. I mean, the college athletes need to be compensated. I'd say it's a given. Did the two sides need to get together and figure out something
Yeah.
that works? Yes.
NCAA is its own
Yeah.
business.
Yes. But the whole thing about international
Is
athletes,
that crazy?
they don't have to adhere to the same
They do
things.
and they don't.
Yeah.
They're capped at how much they can earn. But I mean, I had teammates who were buying mopeds, like a $15,000 little scooter at the time is what they
Yeah.
bought. And because of the excess money that they always had the best apartments because they were getting their rent paid by their country.
Yeah.
And guess what? Most college athletics like deals that you get a stipend for food when you're during the off season and you have to stay on campus to eat. You will get your room, your board, your books, usually your education, like your tuition,
Right.
and then they will sometimes give you additional money for gas. It's all in compliance, and NCAA compliance changes every year.
Yeah.
So, and you're tested on it. A lot of people don't realize that you as a college athlete have to take tests on NCAA rules almost every quarter, usually is what we were doing it. I don't know what it is now. But if you don't pass your compliance tests, that means the NCAA can come and say you didn't know what you were responsible for because you're signing a contract with your university,
Right.
right?
They
You're
wanna
also
make
signing,
sure you're
yeah,
because if you mess up, it hurts the
your
or yeah,
liability,
yeah.
right? But then you're also signing a contract with the NCAA saying you're going to play by our rules. And the reason why they do that, they say, is to prevent doping, right?
Yeah.
Baseball is a big sport that's been known for that. Craig Biggio and
Yeah.
like all those guys, back in the great day. I still love Craig Biggio. Um, but you know, people talk about that all the time. What is the purpose of the NCAA? What is the purpose of the MLB? You know, it's a business. It's not
It is.
some intrinsically great organization. And you can't say this probably because of your position, but it's not meant to like create the warm and fuzzies to keep the sport
Yeah.
alive. No, they're doing it to capitalize on player involvement, So is it, I always have these conversations with it's always the guy who peaked in high school in sports
Uh-huh.
who has the biggest opinion about NIL and major league sports.
Oh.
So it's interesting. I love talking to like actual people in the arena, you know what I mean? That's cool. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that baseball hasn't really you haven't seen that many attitude changes. So that's great.
No, I mean it's there are always going to be players that aren't easily approachable. There are always going to be players that are standing on that warning track before they walk up the tunnel, signing every autograph until there's nobody looking for autographs. That's just how it is, and I think that's more of a personality thing than, "Oh, I don't wanna diminish my stock, my value because 'cause I'm signing all these autographs," or, "I don't wanna give these fans the time of day." I think that's more of a personality, attitude
Yeah.
issue, and it's a shame that there are players that it's like pulling teeth to get them to sign something from a fan perspective.
Mhm.
Because when it comes down to it, those are, that little 6-year-old kid is the guy that's buying his family 6 season tickets 20 years from now.
It's
You know,
memories. That's what
it's
baseball's so
it's
great.
that's who you if there aren't people going to the ballpark, pretty soon there isn't money to be paying these player salaries. And I think, and this is a complete personal opinion,
Love it.
I don't think a vast majority of professional athletes get that part of it.
Really?
I think a good chunk of them do, but I think a vast majority of them don't. That
Wow.
6-year-old kid is the reason you Otani's making
Yeah.
70, what is it? I don't even remember
Yeah.
the number. Making the millions of dollars he is because people are going to Dodgers games.
And like
Yeah.
Verlander, right?
Yeah.
Verlander's known to be a pretty great guy because he's like there and is involved. Or like Drew Brees. Like
Yeah.
Drew Brees has inserted himself into the New Orleans culture because, after Katrina happened, he was one of the first ones out there actually doing something for the community.
Right.
And that goes back to our initial question, right? How do you get buy-in with the community? You have to be a part of it.
You
But
do.
it's got to be very difficult for Major League Baseball or minor league baseball when you're moving all the time.
Yeah. No, and I also get it that I don't know how I would be if everywhere I turned somebody was wanting my autograph. I mean, I'm nobody. So it's easy from this
You
side
are
of it
somebody
to
in Midland,
no,
Ray.
I'm not even somebody in the middle. Um, at the same token, I don't know what I would be like, if I was that person. I mean, if somebody constantly wanted to take a piss selfie with you or sign this ticket or sign this baseball. Um, but there are guys that will do it and stand there and sign and take pictures that
I feel like those guys are also the type of guys that grew up maybe seeing their one of their favorite baseball players play and take
yeah,
the time. And I think that's what's so great about baseball is like baseball is such an American sport. I know that's what a lot of Americans believe. They think, baseball and football, the American dream, apple pie and, rock and roll music and fireworks. Like it just like, Eagles blaring in the background, like that's what America is that baseball unites, sports unite
yeah,
the
they do.
country. And so baseball is such a great sport because it is something that you can see a grandfather and his grandson at a game enjoying together. And the game, it really hasn't changed all that much, where you have football that changes its rules every, like, year.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Baseball changes rules too,
oh,
but
really?
oh yeah,
Would you say that? How often do y'all change regulatory, like,
not as often as other sports,
okay,
but a lot of it started to come out a couple years ago. The pitch clock in the minor leagues, which is now in they always test the rules in the minor leagues.
oh, really? So they're
Yes.
like, this didn't work, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. For instance, Major League Baseball studies showed that the most exciting things to happen, there are two things that are exciting to happen in a baseball game that has every fan like loves
Pumped.
to see pumped. A double,
Yep.
because it's a guy hitting a ball and then trying to stretch a single into a double,
Hmm.
and stolen bases. It's not home runs. It's not
Really?
strikeouts.
I would have
The
just thought
the
like home
two
run
things. So,
because it
uh
builds the tension.
yeah. So the rules that got implemented it was to encourage doubles and stolen bases. Our bases are bigger, than like high school and
Yeah.
college. So the distance between first and second base is it's not 90 feet anymore.
Mm-mm.
It's 90 feet from the center of those bases, but not from the edges. Think about how close are most stolen bases.
Mhm.
They're pretty like bang bang, like whoa, and they go to video replay a bunch. So a guy that may not be a big stolen base guy now,
Uh-huh.
all of a sudden he's 4 inches closer to second
And
base.
he's doing it more often,
Yeah.
or hopefully.
So and likewise with stretching a single into a double. Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah. And baseball games lasted too long, hence the pitch clock. And it works.
I forgot about that. That's right. That's so interesting. Are there
Although I don't think they needed the pitch clock. All they needed to do was enforce a rule that's been on the books for 100 years.
See, that's the thing about like that's the thing about baseball though. There's so many years like the sport has been around for so long that like there's only so many times you
Yeah.
can like change something, right? Like just go back to what we initially had or whatever.
Most people don't realize because it happens, it's part of the game.
Mm.
How often does a batter step out of the batter's box?
Oh my gosh.
Technically, he's supposed to ask and get permission from the umpire.
Really?
All you have to do is enforce that one rule, and the game's going to shorten itself a bunch.
Huh.
Yeah.
Because
But
that would
they,
like cut down
yeah.
like what, an hour? Maybe I was kidding.
Not an hour. But I'm like, really? How often do you have to adjust
I
your
know,
batting
yeah.
gloves? Weren't they already tight when you stepped in?
It's so annoying when they're like just
Every-
or like they'll
and I'm
go.
sure and I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
We would do it with
I
our
didn't get
goggles a
very
lot.
far, but I played sports. It's like there are things you do that are
It's
just
more out of nervous
yeah.
ticks, I feel like.
There you go. More
Like
nervous tick or
it's like
just habits.
or
This
I'll
is what
say,
you do.
like I was always known for I would take my goggles off, take them on, take them off, and then like take them off my face and then put them back on. And like I had to do it. It's like an OCD thing. I feel
Yeah.
like just with athletes,
Oh,
we're very
sure.
superstitious.
Yeah, very.
So like it just every like if you that one game
Well,
that
it's
you
like
did well,
there are ball players that will put the same shoe on first before the other shoe. It's and do the
and
same
like
exact thing. I knew hockey players and it was never one guy who played because we used to own on Jackalopes, and it was our first or second season. And I saw him coming into the arena, and I go, hey, I saw you at Subway. How was lunch? He's like, same as it was the day before. I'm like, what do you mean? It's the season. Wherever I go, the first game of the season, that's where I go every day. I'm like, what?
it's weird.
You eat lunch at the same. So like there may be 48 hockey games. In a matter of 4 months' time, you eat Subway 48 times. Yep.
I had a friend who she rode at TCU horses and she would jump horses for TCU and she had to have a Red Bull, no, a Big Red, like the red so
Oh,
like talk
she
about
likes
die
sugar.
40. I know. Like gosh, RFK would be all over her.
Yeah.
But like Big Red soda, which is like a cream soda for people who don't know.
Yeah.
And then she had to have powdered donuts.
Every kid's favorite drink at the
I
ballpark.
know.
It's so sweet.
It's so sweet. It doesn't even taste like anything. It's
It's
just
just
sugar
sugar,
But she-
carbonated sugar water.
with powdered donuts.
Whoa.
Like the kind that just come like in the little thing.
Yeah, like little
she's-
gyms or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Every single horse competition she's ever done since she won like nationals in junior high.
Yeah, so it's very. I mean, I guess superstition goes.
She
every
wouldn't even
sport.
like eat it all. She had to have like a bite because it was like if she didn't have it, she'd like lose it.
Yeah.
And like I know some of my football friends. I have a friend who plays on the Jets right now, and like he has to write like his mom's name on his palm before he puts on his glove because he did that in junior high. And like he has to have a Sharpie, and like one time he forgot his Sharpie, and like all hell brought loose. You know what I mean?
One of our boys, his love was baseball, but he was truly a better football athlete and could have played football in college, but he just was done. You know, head coach is trying to get him to play. He's like, no, I'm tired of being beaten up. Now it'll just be Saturdays instead of Fridays, and I'm done. But every game, he would be on pregame warm-ups, and you could see him stop whatever they were doing, and he'd be scanning the crowd till he saw Mom.
That's so sweet. Did you ever listen to them? Do you ever listen to them? Like, do your mom ever go to the games a lot?
His mom?
Yeah.
Oh, she was at every game.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot with baseball, man. Like you got to go to so many games. I was just thinking like it becomes like a certain like thing in your head that you think you're going to fail. Like if you don't do that one ritual, you
I bet
know?
you it does.
Yeah, but I love always listening to, like, the NFL when they hook them up onto the thing and you, like, hear him, like, "I'm looking for my mama in the crowd." It's so funny. Well, cool. The last thing I have for you is, what gives you hope for the future of Midland? Is it do you think that more company involvement is gonna help grow the program? Do you think that AI and advancements is gonna help with, you
With the
know,
Rockhounds?
coaching? What do you think is gonna be for the future of baseball and what gives you hope for that?
Kids?
Kids?
Kids got I'm a big proponent of Little League. Huge. And my son, my youngest played as much as he became a golfer in high school. He played we did the travel ball. We did, he played Little League All-Stars. Little League has to stay in the US because every kid I mean, you can't make it a law, but more or less, I think every kid is entitled to be able to play baseball.
Really?
And I think the only way that that can happen is that Little League sticks around. If the
Is it
Little
a
League,
threat? Is it a threat or something? Like that
it's
this
not as much a threat, but travel and tournament baseball has
okay,
become so
not accessible?
it's hard. I can tell you when I mean, are my wife and I rich? No, but are we comfortable? Yeah, we're comfortable.
Yeah.
But I can tell you the 4 or 5 years that our youngest played travel baseball, those 6 months, it was,
Lighting money on fire?
yeah, I mean, and there are so many kids that have way more skill than most of these kids that are being able to do this
Yeah.
that their parents can't do that for them. Every kid has to little league baseball and it almost should be subsidized. It's like almost in there should be a organization for every single sport there is
No joke.
that makes it accessible to any kid,
I get that.
whether they swimming,
Yeah.
soccer,
It's nearly impossible to do.
every sport should be and if you have to figure out a way to grant kids not necessarily scholarship money but
Yeah.
assistance money that a single mom that has 3 kids and she's working a full-time job just to keep them above water, those kids need to be able to play a sport
Yeah.
if they want to.
Have you
And
ever heard of the Aspen Institute?
I haven't.
I This is great. It's an the Aspen Institute in general is in Aspen, Colorado, and it's a think tank. It's kind of bureaucratic a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah.
You kind of have to ignore that, but they have a sports institute that focuses on youth sports, and they do a lot of really good research. Like last week, they had Luca from the Lakers now. That's a whole other conversation. But he was talking about like the state of youth sports and how to keep youth in sports and what are the barriers to getting, international people like himself
Yeah.
into US sports. And, I know because of my education, but also my experience and what I do currently, that youth sports does not make money. Like you're bleeding money if you want to do it right with the right training, with the right accreditation, with the right insurance. There's so much involved. And for baseball, I mean, you got to make sure your kids are safe. You got to make sure you have the right like materials, like the stuff that they have to be wearing. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. And it's so difficult for high quality programs to be successful if you don't have parents buying in. But then also, that is so difficult to put on all the parents. Like for swimming, if you're going to be a part of USA Swimming, sometimes swim programs are parent owned, which means parents have ownership, financial ownership in the team, or it's backed by a bigger organization like a city. So, but it's so hard because you're right, there's so many life skills that kids can learn from sports. But unfortunately, that's what's the biggest hurdle for youth sports right now is the financial feasibility for these programs to be well ran because you don't want abusive coaching practices
No,
going on.
no.
And you have to have highly trained people, and training your people is the most expensive part of youth sports, that and the insurance
Yeah.
and all, facility management even. That's luckily we're excited. Luckily we have the Midland Athletic Syndicate that's building this brand new indoor basketball and, right by you guys.
Yep.
And that's
It's
luckily
a great group of guys
it
that
is. John
are
Scarborough is
making
doing a
it.
big deal
Yeah.
out there, and Permian Resources also has invested a lot of money into it, and so is Diamondback. But if it's not without their support, we can't have that, right? So,
Exactly.
you know, I'm hoping too for Midland that over the next 10 years, things like the Beal Park for soccer, that's a
I
big
hope
deal.
I hope that keeps so many kids here on the weekends.
Me too. It's like a ghost
I mean,
town.
yeah, Midland could. They're so, and like I said, I was part of it with baseball, but I know families that have more than one kid, and they're playing a couple, and the kids are playing different sports,
Families are like this.
and they're traveling
Yeah.
all over the place on the weekends, and thank goodness we're gonna have now we're gonna have an indoor facility because we haven't even talked about volleyball, but oh my
Volleyball,
gosh,
I know.
that
4-3-2 volleyball, I've been
yeah,
dying to get on.
yeah,
What they're doing is incredible too,
yeah,
and the most expensive part of youth sports is the facility. Like I'm building one myself. It is
yeah,
very expensive. And you have to keep up with so much code, and then there's city code, and then your sport has code that you have to maintain, and like there's so much things that are involved. And then there's parents can only do so much. They have only
yeah.
so many resources. And my hope for the future is that I think people are finally taking it seriously, because I think a lot of parents are getting really sick and tired of having to drive to Lubbock all the time, or
Yeah.
Dallas or whatever.
Yeah, it's not Lubbock's easy.
Yeah, seriously, Lubbock City, it's Houston, the 9-hour
Yeah.
drive that makes it
We
hard.
never went that far, but we went pretty far
That's
with
crazy.
baseball.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and I
Thanks
hope.
for having me.
Yeah,
I
we're
know
gonna.
we went every which way.
No, hey, the whole point of this podcast is to bring a bigger perspective to what is here,
Yeah.
and to challenge really some preconceptions that people may have. I mean, we have some really fantastic professionals in our community.
And Midland's we didn't really talk about this much, but
Yeah.
the infusion of young professional in Midland is so good to see. As an old guy, she turned 60 next month. Uh, but to see so many young professionals being involved with things, I know a former rockhound, his wife is really involved with. It's not junior achievement. They put on the Cattle Barons Ball. She's
Oh,
um,
American Cancer Society.
yeah, but the group that puts it on,
Yeah,
I forget.
YPE, or Young Professionals in Energy.
I'm not sure, but it's like this. I see so many more young people
Yeah.
getting involved in things. I just remember, when I was, 15 years or so ago, it was the same group of people doing things, and it's great. I like the way Medlin is where it's going with the young professionals and young adults in town.
I think a lot of people are building what they want for their kids here,
Yeah.
which I think is great.
So,
So,
and sports can be a big part of it.
here. Thank you so much, Ray. I
Oh,
appreciate you guys coming.
my pleasure.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where we're going to do a lot of these cool interviews this year, as well as our Spotify. Thanks so much. Bye.